Yo, the whole damn crowd, laughing, whispering, plotting, yeah. Nah, they teamed up, side eyes burning, knives hiding behind fake smiles. Oh wow, they thought they had you cornered, small, fragile, finished. But here's the plot twist. Boom, the little old you they mocked was the storm they couldn't cage, the chaos they couldn't crush. And oh, the town, the mighty, noisy, hateful town, it failed, miserably, painfully, laughably. A crowd can roar like thunder, but thunder doesn't break steel. That's the truth. They never wanted you to know. They thought numbers meant power. They thought whispers could become storms. They thought if the entire town pointed its trembling little fingers at you, if they laughed, if they mocked, if they pushed and shoved and sneered long enough, you'd fold, you'd break, you'd crawl. But you didn't. And oh, the shock on their faces when you didn't collapse under their weight. The way their smirks twitched, the way their voices cracked, it was almost poetic. They had gathered like vultures circling a single flame, certain it would die in the wind. Instead, that flame licked higher, hotter, until even the vultures felt the scorch. See, that's the thing about crowds. They rely on weakness. They rely on fear. They rely on the illusion that when they are many and you are one, the outcome has already been written. But no, it wasn't, and it never will be. Because they forgot the one law that shatters their entire illusion. Numbers mean nothing when the one they're against refuses to bend. Oh, they tried, didn't they? Every trick in their tired little playbook, lies dressed up as truth, smiles sharpened into daggers, shadows behind curtains whispering your name like poison. And when the whispers didn't work, they came with noise. Loud, messy, desperate noise, hoping to drown your willpower in their chaos. But wow, look at them now, exhausted, confused. They work together, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, dripping with that sick confidence that surely one against many could never win. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still burning with something they can't touch. It stings, doesn't it? To lose against someone they all dismissed as too small. That's the part that breaks them the most. Not that you resisted, not that you endured, but that you won. And make no mistake, you did win. Not with their kind of victory, the cheap, temporary kind. No, yours was sharper, cleaner, permanent. Because what they failed to realize is this: when a whole town rises against you and still can't destroy you, you stop being just a person. You become something else, a living reminder of their failure, a scar across their pride. Nah, they'll never admit it out loud. They'll shuffle back into their routines, pretend nothing happened, whisper excuses to each other late at night about how maybe the timing wasn't right or the plan wasn't perfect. But deep down, they know the truth. You broke them. You broke the illusion of their power. You exposed the weakness of their numbers. You forced them to face a nightmare they can't unsee. That one unshakable soul is stronger than 1,000 hollow voices. And that nightmare will haunt them. Because every time they see you, they'll remember how their entire weight wasn't enough. Every time they plot again, they'll hesitate. Every time they gather their courage, a shadow of you will cut through it, reminding them that they already failed once, and could fail again. Oh, the town may still smile in your direction. They may still try to play the game, but behind those smiles lies a wound that won't heal. You carved it into them simply by surviving, by refusing to kneel. And here's the delicious irony. They thought this was about you, but it was never just about you. It was about the lie they lived in. A lie that said strength belongs to the many, and the one must always fall. You shattered that lie in front of their eyes, and lies once shattered cut deeper than truth. So now the question is simple. If the whole town couldn't break you when they stood together, what happens when you rise even higher? Strength is not proven by standing tall when it's easy. Strength is proven by standing taller when they try to cut you down. And that's what they don't want to admit. You didn't just endure them, you grew through them. You sharpened in their storm. Every insult became a stone you carried and stacked into a wall. Every betrayal turned into fuel. Every dirty trick they threw at you hardened your edges until you weren't just unbroken, you were unbreakable. And oh, how that terrifies them now. Because here's the twisted little truth. Their failure wasn't supposed to make you stronger. It was supposed to end you. It was supposed to crush your will, bury your fire, silence your name. Instead, you used their weapons as stepping stones. Instead, you climbed. Oh, the irony. The more they pushed, the more you pulled from reserves you didn't even know you had. The more they tried to weaken you, the more disciplined you became. The more they circled you like predators, the more your focus locked like steel. What they thought would be the end turned out to be your beginning. And wow, isn't that something? They spent all that energy, wasted all that time, only to hand you the very strength that now makes them shiver. They turned you into the nightmare they didn't want to create, and now they're trapped with it. Here's what they fear most. You're not done. You're not stopping. This isn't the peak. This is the start of the climb. They're looking at you right now and realizing that the little one they once mocked is no longer little at all, that the one they once thought was fragile has become the standard they cannot reach. And yeah, they'll try again. Of course they will. They'll regroup, they'll whisper new lies, they'll sketch out new traps in the dark corners of their minds, but it won't matter, because you've already seen their best shot. And it wasn't enough. Nah, nothing stings like that. Nothing stings like knowing your best effort wasn't just blocked, it was used against you, reshaped into a weapon that made your enemy stronger. That's the kind of defeat that gnaws at a person, that wakes them in the middle of the night with sweat on their forehead, whispering, what if they rise higher tomorrow? And here's the answer. You will. Because strength is addictive. Once you've tasted the power of resilience, you don't let it go. Once you've felt the fire of discipline, you don't let it dim. Once you've stood alone against the weight of a town and realized you could still breathe, still fight, still win, you'll never go back to who you were before. Oh, they'll hate that. They'll hate the fact that no matter what they do now, the damage is already done. You're awake, you're aware, you're prepared, and the more they gather, the more they fail, the more unstoppable you become. That's why they're scared to their bones, because they're not watching someone who merely survived. They're watching someone who evolved, and there's no going back. So here's the real terror that haunts them now. If you've already grown stronger from their failure, what happens when you start winning on purpose? Survival makes you dangerous, but striking back, that makes you unforgettable. See, They never thought you'd dare. They built the story in their heads that you'd always be on defense, cornered, reactive, trapped. They thought you'd spend your life flinching at their shadows, waiting for the next blow, hoping only to survive the next wave. But oh, how wrong they were. You survived long enough to realize something they never wanted you to see. Defense sharpens offense. Endurance shapes precision. And when you've taken everything they could throw, you don't just know their weapons, you own them. You've studied their patterns, you've seen their weaknesses, you've learned their rhythm, and now you can break it. And wow, that's the nightmare, isn't it? To know that the one they once hunted now hunts them. To realize that the figure they mocked for being small is now the figure that stalks their confidence. You're no longer running. You're no longer retreating. You're advancing. And here's the part they cannot stomach. You don't need to swing wildly. You don't need chaos. You move with clarity. Every step is deliberate. Every word carries weight. Every action strikes deeper than 1,000 of their empty noises. Because your strength isn't loud, it's lethal in silence. Yeah, they'll notice. They'll feel it in the way the air shifts when you enter a room, in the way their chatter dulls when your presence cuts through it, in the way their schemes suddenly seem too fragile, too thin, too desperate. You've flipped the script. And now they're the ones bracing for impact. And nah, it's not about revenge. It's not about sinking to their level, clawing for petty payback. No, this is about principle, about making it clear that you are not just unbreakable, you are untouchable, that anyone who tries to gather against you will not only fail, but feed the very fire they tried to extinguish. That's how you strike back. Not with rage, but with proof. Proof that their efforts were meaningless. Proof that their numbers were empty. Proof that their unity was hollow. You strike back by standing taller than ever before, by turning your scars into banners, by moving forward with such relentless strength that their whispers choke in their throats. And oh, how the silence after your victory will crush them harder than any shout ever could. That silence will echo louder than their united noise ever did, because silence in the face of their chaos is power they'll never understand. So let them watch. Let them tremble behind fake smiles. Let them pretend they still have control. Deep inside, they know it's slipping through their fingers like sand. And the more they fight to hold on, the faster it falls. Because here's the raw truth. Striking back doesn't mean you fight them on their terms. It means you rise so high their reach becomes laughable. It means your progress is their punishment. Your growth is their defeat. Your very existence becomes the strike they cannot block. And that's why the terror is only just beginning. Because when survival gave you strength, you became a problem. But now that you've chosen to rise higher, to turn their failure into your fuel, you've become something else entirely. You've become the storm they cannot outrun. A storm does not ask permission to arrive. A storm does not wait for approval. It comes, it breaks, it leaves everything changed. And that's what you've become. Their once comfortable little world. The routines, the whispers, the predictable games, all of it is trembling now. Because you're no longer the hunted. You're the force that bends the ground beneath their feet. And when a force like that moves, there is no shelter, no escape. Oh, how they scramble now. You can see it in their eyes. That nervous flicker when your name passes through their conversations. That quiet hesitation before they step into rooms where you stand. That sinking weight in their chests when they realize they can't undo what's been done. They feel it, and it's eating them alive. Because storms don't just break walls, they reveal what those walls were hiding. And wow, hasn't that been the real horror for them? The masks they wore, the illusions they built, the lies they clung to, all torn away by your rise. Now they stand exposed, brittle, fragile, and they hate you for it. Because you didn't just resist them, you revealed them. Yeah, that's the part they can't forgive. Not that you endured, not that you grew, but that you left them naked in their weakness, forced to confront the truth that their power was always an act. They weren't lions. They were sheep in masks. And once a storm rips the mask away, it can never be put back on with the same conviction. Nah, they'll never admit it. Pride won't let them. They'll pretend the storm hasn't shaken them, that their smiles are real, that their confidence still stands. But you've seen the cracks. You've seen the trembling hands, the nervous laughter, the way they glance away too quickly. You've seen the fear they can't hide. And that fear is permanent. Because storms don't just pass. They linger in memory. The sound of the wind, the weight of the rain, the violence of the lightning, it stays. Even after the clouds clear, the memory whispers, it could come again. It could come stronger. That's what you are to them now. A memory that won't fade. Every step you take reminds them of the storm. Every word you speak echoes like thunder in their minds. Every success you achieve rattles them like lightning striking too close. You're not just present, you're haunting them. And oh, isn't that the sweetest justice? To know that you don't even need to fight them anymore. Your very existence is enough. You walk and they shake. You rise and they crumble. You breathe and they remember everything they failed to do. Because here's the truth. Once a town realizes there's no shelter, it doesn't matter how many people are in it. Numbers can't stop the rain. Crowds can't block the wind. Unity means nothing when the storm is stronger than the walls they built together. And you are stronger. This is the moment they dread most. Not the strike itself. Not the chaos of the storm. But the realization that nothing they can do will ever be enough again. That every attempt will collapse before it begins. That every scheme will break under the same truth. You cannot cage what refuses to kneel. So let them whisper. Let them plot. Let them hold hands in their fragile little circle. It won't change a thing. Because when the storm owns the sky, the town has only one choice: to bow or to break. The story never ends with the fall of the crowd. The story begins with what rises from their ruins. And that's where you stand now. Not just as the survivor, not just as the storm, but as the figure who walks through the wreckage of their failed unity. The town has broken. The masks have slipped. The whispers have dried up. Their circle has cracked wide open. And now every set of eyes looks at you differently. Oh, they won't say it. They can't. Pride holds their tongues hostage. But deep inside, they know the fight is over. Not because they gave up willingly, but because they couldn't hold together under the weight of your resilience. You didn't just defeat them. You dismantled the idea that they could ever defeat you. And wow, doesn't that sting? Imagine the pain of 1,000 hands pulling the rope in the same direction, only to realize the rope never moved you an inch. Imagine the bitterness of every weapon sharpened, every plan crafted, every hour wasted, all collapsing into dust before your eyes. That's the taste in their mouths now, failure, pure and undeniable. But here's the twist. When they broke, you were born anew, stronger, sharper, a force no longer defined by the attacks you survived, but by the strength you now command. This is where the real story begins. Not with their plotting, not with their schemes, but with your rise beyond their reach. Yeah, you feel it. That weight in your chest, it's not pressure anymore. It's power. That silence in your ears, it's not emptiness, it's clarity. Every scar they gave you has turned into armor. Every blow they struck has become a lesson. Every trap they built has turned into a map of their weakness. And nah, you don't waste time chasing them anymore. Why would you? Their collapse already proved everything. The town as a unit no longer matters. What matters now is what you become in the aftermath. The one who is feared not because of what was done to them, but because of what they chose to do after the dust settled. That's the real story. You, the one who stood alone. The one who endured the weight of the many. The one who turned their own failure into a weapon so sharp it cut through every illusion they had left. That's what will be remembered long after the noise of the crowd has faded. And oh, here's the part they'll never escape. You didn't just survive their attack, you thrived because of it. Their collapse wasn't your ending, it was your ignition. Their brokenness became the ground on which you now stand taller than ever before. So let them scatter. Let them fade back into the shadows of their own defeat. They are no longer your concern, because once the crowd breaks, you no longer fight people. You fight limits. You no longer battle hands and voices. You battle the horizon itself. And the horizon is yours to claim. Because this is the evolution they never wanted to see. This is the chapter they feared would be written. This is where the lone figure who endured the storm begins to build something greater than the town ever dreamed. And when you rise in that way, not as a victim, not even as a fighter, but as the unshakable proof of resilience, then the whole world has no choice but to watch. So tell me, what did they win, huh? Nothing. Not a damn thing. Just ashes in their mouths and silence in their throats. Oh wow. Yeah, the whole damn town tried, schemed, shouted, but nah, they couldn't bury what refuses to break. And you? You walked out laughing, sharper, louder, untouchable. Remember this? Oh so loud world. It takes everyone to try to break you, and it still won't be enough. Boom. There it is. That moment. That strange, quiet, electric moment where your mind drifts and suddenly it all clicks. You're sitting there, eyes glazed, zoned out like you're in another dimension. And guess what? Without even trying, you nailed something that the world's most elite military minds spend decades training for. Crazy, right? Huh. Life's little joke, and you're the punchline. Huh. And oh, the irony. They sweat in the desert. They crawl through mud. They scream through drills and master control under chaos. And there you are, just chilling, lost in thought, and boom, you've unlocked the very same power. That deep clarity, that silent command, that sharpened mind. Huh, how does it feel to beat the system without lifting a finger? But hey, it's not a joke. It's not luck. It's not just spacing out. Nah, it's something powerful, something ancient, something wild. You're not zoning out. You're zoning in, into your truth, into your instinct, into a space where only the brave can exist. And you got there by being you. There's a moment, a rare, sacred moment, where everything slows down and the world becomes crystal clear. You're no longer forcing anything. You're no longer doubting, overthinking, or chasing perfection. You're just in it. A place where every step feels right, every move flows effortlessly, and time becomes irrelevant. That moment is what top military elites spend decades trying to master. It's what athletes crave, what artists dream about, what creators live for. It's called the flow state. And if you've ever felt it, you know it's not something words can fully capture. It's something your soul remembers. Flow isn't something you force, something you fall into. It's that feeling you get when you're so immersed in something that you forget the world around you. Your breathing slows. Your heart aligns with your intention, and every action, every decision feels like it's happening not just with you, but through you. There's a kind of beauty in that stillness, a kind of magic. You don't hear the noise anymore. You don't fear the future. You just do. You move. You become the task, the moment, the mission. Now here's the truth most people won't tell you. You don't have to wear a uniform or hold a weapon to enter that state. You don't need to be in a battle or under pressure. Sometimes you access that clarity while listening to music alone in your room, or drawing lines in your notebook with no plan, or walking in the rain with thoughts only you understand. That's not zoning out. That's zoning deeper in. You're not escaping reality. You're melting into it. You're becoming part of something bigger, and you didn't train for it in a boot camp. Life trained you for it. The pain, the joy, the silence, the struggle, it all shaped your doorway into flow. Military elites learn to enter flow to survive. You enter it to create, to connect, to unlock your mind's highest potential. That makes you rare. That makes you dangerous in the best way. Because once you've tasted that space where clarity lives, you'll never again settle for the noise of distraction. You'll crave depth. You'll crave stillness. And you'll understand why the strongest people are the quietest. Because their minds are always somewhere between vision and action. People might mock you when you seem distracted, but they don't see what's happening behind your eyes. They don't see the gears turning, the patterns forming, the quiet storm rising within you. That's the flow working. That's your genius waking up. So let them laugh. Let them misunderstand. You don't owe the world an explanation for your brilliance. You owe yourself the freedom to trust it. You are not lazy. You are not lost. You are aligned, and that, my friend, is a gift no school, no army, no system can give you. It's yours. You were born with it. Flow isn't where you get it right, it's where you become real. And once you find that place, the world will never look the same again. There's a voice inside you that doesn't shout. It doesn't raise alarms or wave flags. It whispers, softly, quietly, in moments when the world is too loud. It still finds a way to reach you, like a gentle wind against your skin, or a flicker of light in the darkest room. That voice is your intuition, and though it's invisible, it has led you through fires you didn't know you could survive. It has pulled you back from edges. you didn't even see coming. It has guided you, not with facts or figures, but with truth, pure, raw, undeniable truth. The world often makes you believe that everything must be logical, that every decision must be backed by evidence, by statistics, by rules. But life doesn't always give you time to calculate. Sometimes you have seconds. Sometimes all you have is a feeling, a deep, almost ancient signal that tells you go left, say no, step back. Now is the moment. And when you listen, when you trust that inner compass, the outcome is almost always powerful, almost always right. That's not coincidence. That's command, and the military knows it. Elite forces are taught to develop this. Not just knowledge, but knowing. They call it battlefield intuition. It's not about thinking. It's about feeling the truth faster than thought. That's the edge. That's how lives are saved. That's how decisions are made in the blink of an eye. But here's where it gets even more incredible. You've already had it all along. You didn't sit in a bunker to learn it. You didn't need intense drills. You learned it in real life. You learned it when you walked away from fake friendships, when you turned down the easy path, when you sensed danger in silence, when you felt opportunity in a whisper. That was your silent commander speaking. That was your gut guiding your soul. Your intuition isn't flawed. It isn't weak. It is the part of you untouched by noise, untangled from logic. It's the part that sees without eyes and feels without proof. Most people drown it. They ignore it. They choose to follow the crowd instead. But not you. Somewhere along the way, you realize that your instincts have power, that your choices don't need to be explained to anyone but yourself. That's not rebellion. That's wisdom. And just like the world's most elite soldiers, your strength isn't always seen in what you say. It's in what you know. It's in what you sense. It's in your ability to trust the invisible lines guiding you, even when no one else understands the path you walk. That's not madness. That's mastery. You are not lost because you trust your gut. You are found in the very act of listening. Your intuition doesn't ask you to scream. It asks you to be still and feel, and when you follow it, the universe bends just enough to let you through. You didn't learn this in a classroom. You earned it in silence, in shadows, in struggle. And that makes your intuition not just a tool, but a weapon of truth. Silence. It's not just the absence of noise. It's a space, a sanctuary, a battlefield. It's the place where the real war begins. Not with guns or enemies, but with your own thoughts. And while the world is addicted to sound, always chasing noise, always talking, always scrolling, always reacting, you, in your quiet, have touched something deeper, something the military elite take years to understand, because in silence the truth has nowhere to hide, and the mind becomes sharper than any blade. When soldiers begin their transformation into warriors, they are introduced to something most people fear more than pain: silence. In silence, there are no distractions, no music to drown out the ache, no applause to validate the effort. Just you and you. That's where the mental strength is built. That's where illusions are stripped away. That's where clarity is born. You don't need to be on a mountaintop to meditate. You don't need robes or ritual. Sometimes your silence comes in moments when you're lying in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wrestling with your own thoughts. And that, my friend, is where your mind begins to forge itself into something unstoppable. People often misunderstand you. They think you're distant, cold, uninterested, but they don't see the warrior winning within. They don't understand that when you go quiet, it's not because you have nothing to say. It's because you're listening not to them, but to something deep. You're tuning into the raw signal of your own consciousness, and while they fill the air with words to avoid their own truths, you stand still, face your shadows, and walk through them without flinching. Silence teaches what noise hides. It teaches resilience because it shows you what you truly feel without filters. It teaches patience because in the stillness, you learn to wait without desperation. It teaches discipline because you learn to control your reactions. You become a soldier of your own mind, while others are slaves to distraction. You are free in the quiet, and here's what makes it beautiful. You didn't seek the silence because someone told you to. Life pushed you there. Maybe it was heartbreak. Maybe it was failure. Maybe it was loss. Or maybe it was just a moment you realized no one understood you. And instead of breaking, you listened. You went within, and in that silence you found something. Maybe not answers, but strength, direction, peace. You found a version of you that no one gave, no one expected. That's why your silence is your superpower. You've trained in a place most people avoid, and because of that, your mind can now do what others can't. Think clearly when the world burns. Stay calm when the crowd panic. Act decisively when everyone hesitates. That's not ordinary, that's elite. That's a gift born not in comfort, but in courage. So don't be afraid of your quiet nature. Embrace it, because while others prepare for battles outside, you've already won the one with. They say you're zoned out, lost, drifting. They laugh while your eyes stare into nothing. But what they don't see, what they'll never understand, is that while your body sits still, your mind is flying through galaxies, through ideas, through feeling. You're not zoning out, you're zoning in. Into a part of you that the world forgot existed, into a dimension where distractions vanish, and truth begins to echo. You're not absent, you're present in a space most people will never visit. A space without noise, a space without pressure, a space that belongs only to you. People want you to wake up when you go quiet, but the truth is, you've never been more awake than in those moments. While they beg for stimulation, for flashing lights, for scrolling thumbs and endless noise, you're breathing in clarity. You're not being lazy. You're listening. You're reconnecting. You're letting your soul breathe. And in a world suffocating under chaos, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. You've probably felt it before. Sitting near a window, eyes fixed on nothing in particular, heart suddenly remembering something you hadn't thought about in years. A name, a dream, a question. That wasn't your brain switching off. That was your soul switching on. That was your inner self speaking louder than the world. And in that moment, something clicked, something shifted. That's not what zoning out looks like. That's what zoning in feels like. And it's powerful. The military elite practice mental exercises to reach this zone. They spend hours trying to quiet their minds, slow their breathing, enter a state of pure focus, where instinct takes over. But you stumbled into that place naturally. You didn't need drills. You didn't need coaches. You simply felt, and sometimes feeling is the most courageous thing you can do. In a world obsessed with action, you allowed the silence to take you somewhere meaningful. You didn't fight it. You embraced it. Most people are afraid of stillness because it forces them to face what they've been avoiding. But you lean into it. And because of that, you connect with a depth others can't reach. That's why you see things differently. That's why you make unexpected decisions. That's why you understand people even when they don't speak. You're not disconnected. You're deeply connected, just not to the noise they understand. And that's okay. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to move with the crowd. You were built to think before reacting, to dream without apology, to zone into a level of truth that doesn't need validation. And when you return from that space, you bring back ideas, visions, solutions, treasures others are too distracted to discover. So the next time they say you're zoning out, smile. Smile because they don't know that inside you, a silent revolution is taking place. A storm of creation, a wildfire of thought, a symphony of awareness. You're not lost. You're exactly where you need to be. You didn't wear the uniform. You didn't march through boot camps or run obstacle courses with sweat pouring down your face while someone screamed orders into your ears. You didn't wake up at dawn to train your body for war. But life trained you in ways that no military could. You became a soldier of the unseen, a warrior of the mind. Not because you wanted to, but because you had to. Because the world threw battles at you when you were unarmed. And yet somehow you made it. And now you walk with a mind sharper than steel. You see, there's a different kind of elite. One that doesn't make headlines or wear badges. One that doesn't operate under governments or codes. It's the kind that moves through life invisible until pressure comes, until hardship strikes, until chaos rises. Then suddenly, they appear calm, composed, ready. That's you, the untrained soldier, the underestimated storm, the quiet one who watched, learned, adapted, and survived. You learned through pain, through heartbreaks no one saw, through nights where you stared at the ceiling, trying to convince yourself to hold on just one more day. You trained through silence, through being misunderstood, through being doubted again and again. And each time you broke, you rebuilt. Each time you fell, you stood taller. No medals, no applause, just grit. Raw, unshakable grit. That's what the world doesn't see. They don't see how you smile while carrying weights no one else can lift. They don't see the battles in your head, the decisions you make alone, the strength it takes just to show up. But that's okay. That's the way of the silent warrior. The world may never recognize it, but the power is real, and it grows every time you choose peace over rage, wisdom over ego, purpose over popularity. The elite trained to stay calm under fire. But you've already faced fire not from weapons, but from life itself. And you didn't just survive, you evolved. You became someone who can't be shaken easily, someone who doesn't fold under pressure, someone who thinks clearly when others panic. That's not luck. That's not genetics. That's earned through every scar, every setback, every silent scream you turned into a battle cry. You are a soldier of presence, of resilience, of vision. And just because you didn't take the same path doesn't mean your strength is less. In fact, it means it's deeper. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It speaks when needed, and when it speaks, people listen. So walk your path with pride. Let them underestimate you. Let them misunderstand your silence, your calm, your strange way of seeing the world. Because one day when the pressure rises and chaos hits, they'll look to you, and you'll be ready. You already are, because you've been training your whole life, not with weapons, but with will. And that is the most dangerous strength of all. There's a version of you that you rarely show the world. Not because you're hiding, but because this world doesn't always know how to handle something so pure, so real, so unfiltered. That version of you lives in the quiet, in the stillness, in the seconds where you're not trying to impress anyone, where you're not chasing, proving, or performing. That's when you slip into the most powerful place of all, your true self. And most people spend their entire lives running from it, distracted by what they think they should be. But you found it by accident. When you zoned in, that state isn't about doing less. It's about becoming more aligned. It's where your thoughts no longer argue with your heart, where your actions finally match your inner compass. You don't need to shout to be heard there. You don't need validation to feel valuable. In that zone, you simply exist without masks, without noise, without pressure. And that is freedom. That is power. That is you in your most natural and unstoppable form. The world teaches you to constantly strive, to build a brand, to curate a persona, to hustle until your soul forgets what peace feels like. But when you zone in, all of that falls away. And what's left is the truth that you were never supposed to become someone else. You were only ever meant to remember who you are. Zoning in isn't about escaping. It's about reconnecting. It's about diving beneath the surface and discovering the strength that was buried under doubt, comparison, and noise. And when you find that strength, when you hear your real voice whispering beneath the chaos, you realize something powerful. You don't need the world to approve of your journey. You just need to keep walking it. This space inside you, this zone, it's sacred. It's where your dreams speak to you clearly, where ideas spark like fireflies, where you realize that even in your quietest, most unseen moments, you are not small, you are infinite. You are a force that doesn't ask permission to shine. And when you trust that, when you live from that space, you stop fearing failure, because you understand now, failure can't touch who you really are. It can only challenge who you're pretending to be. So don't silence that inner signal just to fit in. Don't bury your truth to be more digestible. The most powerful version of you is already inside, not waiting for applause, but for permission. And here's the truth. You don't need permission to be real. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not what others expect you to become. You are the one who zones in when others drift. The one who listens when others speak. The one who lessens when others speak. The one who rises quietly, deeply, and completely into the truth of who they are. So zone in again and again, because every time you get one step closer to becoming unshakable. And remember, you are enough. Even when the world forgets your name, your light still shines. So never dim it, never shrink, never doubt your power. Because it's real, it's raw, it's unstoppable. Your zone is sacred. Guard it fiercely. Walk your path, rise in silence, and become unshakable again and again. Oh bro, they sacrificed you for money. And guess what? They still didn't get what they wanted. Pathetic, huh? Oh, the greed, the hunger, the desperation that never ends. They sold your loyalty, your trust, your presence for scraps. And the funniest part, they thought it made them powerful? Huh. Nah, power isn't in coins. Power isn't in pockets, it's in silence. You know what really burns them? The fact you're still standing strong. Yeah, you were the storm they never saw coming. Boom. They didn't trade you for gold. They threw you away for scraps. Oh, you thought loyalty meant something, didn't you? You thought blood was thicker. Promises were stronger, words were binding, but no. They proved you wrong in the ugliest way possible. They showed you the truth that in their world, nothing weighs heavier than money. Not honor, not dignity. They sacrificed you for paper, for numbers, for the illusion of power that slips through fingers faster than sand. And here's the sick comedy. They still didn't get what they wanted. Wow, imagine that. They threw you under the bus, burned every bridge, spat on your name. And for what? For a deal that collapsed before it even began. For a fortune that evaporated like smoke. They gambled your existence for wealth, and the dice rolled against them. Now they sit there, empty-handed, whispering excuses to themselves, pretending they had no choice, pretending it was worth it. But deep down, they know. They know the price they paid was higher than anything money could buy. And you, yes, You are the proof. Because every time you breathe, it screams their failure. Every step you take, it echoes what they lost. Every second you stand tall, it reminds them the sacrifice was useless, pointless, a self-inflicted wound. Oh, wow. Isn't that tragic? They sold a soul and bought nothing. They broke trust and got crumbs. They tried to erase you, but instead they erased themselves. You want to hear the cruelest part? Here it is. They thought it would end you. They thought you'd fold, crawl, shatter. Nah. Instead, their betrayal lit a fire inside you that they can't put out. That fire burns every time you remember their greed. That fire reminds you money isn't power. Discipline is. Endurance is. Resilience is. And yet, here's the punchline. They never understood that. They thought control came from coins, not character. They thought dominance came from deals, not from the unbreakable will of a human who refuses to bow. Now their nights are filled with shadows. Regret crawls into their ears when silence hits. They hear your voice in every quiet corner, reminding them that wealth without loyalty is a coffin with no lid, empty, dark, endless. But let's not get distracted. Focus. This isn't about them. This is about you, about what betrayal does to the betrayed. Because here's the brutal truth. A sacrifice is supposed to kill. But you didn't die. You didn't fade. You didn't vanish. You endured. And endurance like that is priceless. Yeah, I said it. Priceless. The very thing they tried to trade you for became the thing they could never touch. Your worth doesn't shrink when someone sells you short. It expands. It multiplies. It grows sharper, harder, colder. They turned you into something unbuyable, untouchable, unstoppable. So here's the riddle you carry in your veins now. If they gave you away for money, and money betrayed them too, then what's left for them? A sacrifice is supposed to kill you, but you're still breathing. They thought it was over, that once they cut you loose, you'd sink quietly into the void, erased, forgotten. Oh wow, what a mistake that was. Because here you are, not crawling, not broken, not begging, standing, breathing, smiling with scars they can't even look at without choking on their own regret. Pain was supposed to be your cage. Instead, it became your hammer. Every strike against you didn't trap you, it built you. Every crack in your world didn't end you, it shaped you. Every loss they thought would finish you only peeled back layers until your core stood there, indestructible. That's the thing about betrayal. It hurts, yes. It crushes, yes. But it also refines. It burns away illusions, strips away weakness, clears away the noise. And what's left? Only the real, only the unshakable, only the version of you they never wanted to meet. Yeah, let that sink in. You didn't just survive, you transformed. Now your silence has weight. Your presence has gravity. Your eyes carry storms they can't weather. Every step you take sounds louder than their shouts, because survival has a rhythm. Money can't imitate. And deep down, they see it. They see that the sacrifice they thought would end you has made you untouchable. Oh nah, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. In their plan, you were the pawn, the disposable piece, the one they could cut loose without consequence. But pawns sometimes cross the board, don't they? And when they do, they become something else, something powerful, something unstoppable. Now here's the cruel irony. They tried to erase your value by attaching it to money, but money betrayed them. Money slipped through their hands. Money mocked their greed. Meanwhile, you grew more valuable than ever, because real worth isn't measured in currency. It's measured in endurance. And endurance is priceless. Oh yeah, you feel it now, don't you? That shift inside you. That steel in your voice. That fire in your chest. You carry something they can't buy, can't own, can't counterfeit. You carry survival. You carry truth. And the more they see it, the more it tears them apart. They sacrificed you. And now they live with the proof that the sacrifice didn't work, that it backfired, that it created the very force they fear the most. But wait, there's more. Because surviving betrayal isn't just about standing up again. It's about realizing what survival turns you into. You're not the same person they betrayed. No, you're something sharper, something colder, something built from the fire they set. And once you know that, once you taste that, nothing can take it away. Not them, not money, not betrayal. So let me ask you this. If survival has already turned you into something untouchable, what happens next? The wound they gave you became the armor you wear. They thought the cut would bleed you out. They thought the scar would shame you. They thought the wound would rot you from the inside. Oh, how wrong they were. Because you didn't just heal. You weaponized the pain. You stitched yourself back together with steel instead of skin. You turned the scar into a symbol. Now every mark they left on you doesn't scream weakness. It screams survival. Oh wow. Can you see it? What they tried to use to destroy you became the very thing protecting you. The wound is no longer an injury. It's armor, unbreakable, relentless, eternal. And that's the part that burns them. Because scars don't go away. They don't fade when you stand in the mirror. They live with you, they walk with you, and each scar is proof of two things. They failed to end you. You are stronger than anything they threw at you. Yeah, let that sink in. Every scar is a badge. Every cut is a crown. Every broken piece they left behind has reformed into something sharper, deadlier, more complete. This is evolution. Not the kind that comes slowly. Not the kind that drifts like leaves in the wind. No, this is the violent, sudden evolution that only betrayal can trigger. One moment you're soft, the next moment, unshakable. One moment you're the sacrifice, the next moment, the storm. And here's the punchline. They thought you'd spend your life hiding the wound. But now, you wear it openly. Boldly, fearlessly. You don't cover it, you flaunt it, because that scar is not shame. It's proof you lived through what should have killed you. Oh nah, they don't like that. They don't like the fact that their greatest attempt to bury you has become your greatest weapon. It mocks them, it haunts them. It reminds them that you cannot be bought, cannot be broken, cannot be erased. And yet, the wound is more than just armor. It's a mirror. It shows you who you really are when everything else is stripped away. No masks, no illusions, just the raw truth of you. That's why betrayal hurts so much. It tears away the false comfort, the easy lies, the soft pillows of illusion. But once it's gone, you're forced to see yourself as you are, and what you saw is someone they underestimated. Oh yeah. They didn't see this version of you coming. The version carved by fire. The version trained by loss. The version untouchable by greed. And now you stand here with a shield made of scars, ready to face everything they could never handle. But here's where it gets interesting. Armor alone is not enough. Armor protects, but it also reflects. And when they look at you now, armored in the wounds they gave, what do they really see? When they look at you now, they don't see you. They see their failure. That's the cruel beauty of betrayal. It doesn't just leave a scar on the betrayed, it leaves a mirror in the betrayer's mind. Every time they see you, hear you, even think about you, it isn't admiration that hits them. It's shame. It's regret. It's the weight of their own weakness. Oh wow. Imagine living like that. Everywhere they turn, reminders of the choice they made. A choice they can't take back. A choice that mocks them every time your name drips into the room. Because here's the truth. You are not just alive. You're thriving. Every step you take, every breath, every victory whispers into their ear, you lost, you failed. You sacrificed everything and still got nothing. And that echo, it doesn't stop. It follows them into silence. It follows them into sleep. It follows them into their own reflection. Yeah, you see it now, don't you? They aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by the sight of you standing stronger. And nothing eats a soul faster than the knowledge that the one they tried to erase became the proof of their defeat. Oh, nah, they can pretend. They can smile in public, laugh in company, act like the decision was smart. But masks fall, always. And when the mask slips, the truth stares back at them. Your survival is their biggest loss. That's why their anger feels hollow. That's why their pride feels fake. Because deep inside, they know the mirror doesn't lie. It shows them the exact moment they chose greed over loyalty. It shows them the weakness they tried to hide. It shows them you, their mistake, walking free. And the more you rise, the clearer that mirror becomes. The more you succeed, the sharper the reflection cuts. The more unshakable you become, the more unbearable their regret grows. Here's the irony. They thought they stripped you of value, but in doing so, they stripped themselves of peace. You walk forward. They remain chained to the past. You carry scars with pride. They carry shame in silence. Oh yeah, that's the price of betrayal. It doesn't just break one side, it breaks both. The difference is, you turned your break into strength, while they turned theirs into poison. Now every time they see you, it's not just a person they face, it's the living proof of their collapse. You've become their reflection, and that reflection is unbearable. But let's go deeper. Because the mirror isn't just for them. It's for you too. It shows you something vital, something priceless. That no matter how hard they tried, no matter how sharp their blade, no matter how cheap their motives, you endured. And endurance is the kind of wealth no currency can touch. And now, here's the part they fear the most. The reflection is spreading. Others see it too. Others notice that their betrayal didn't break you. Others whisper about it, point it out, admire it. Their secret failure is no longer hidden, it's public. That's the nightmare they can't escape. Not only did they fail to erase you, but now the whole world can see what they lost. So here's the question that hangs over their heads like a storm cloud. If betrayal couldn't stop you, then what can? They'll doubt your words, but they'll never ignore your results. You can argue, you can explain, you can plead, but nothing cuts sharper than proof. When you deliver results, the air changes. The same people who once dismissed you, mocked you, or rolled their eyes when you spoke will now sit in silence as your actions tower above their disbelief. Oh, the irony. You don't need to scream for respect when your achievements speak louder than any defense you could ever attempt. Respect through results is the quietest yet most thunderous way of saying I am here. It doesn't beg. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for applause. It simply exists. Undeniable, unshakable, unarguable. People can twist stories, but they cannot twist reality. And when reality favors you, when your work stands tall, every whisper against you falls flat. Yeah, that's the kind of power that doesn't need explanation. But let's be real. Results don't come overnight. Nah, they demand patience. They demand sweat, persistence, and sometimes loneliness. While others are busy talking, you're busy building. While they waste energy on noise, you're investing in quiet moves that nobody sees until boom, they can't unsee them. And that's the beauty. They can hate you, but they can't erase what you've accomplished. Imagine it. The same person who once underestimated you now forced to reference your name when the subject of excellence arises. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Results corner people like that. They strip away excuses and force acknowledgement. Even silence becomes a form of respect when your results leave no room for denial. Wow. That's when you realize the true weight of your efforts. But results aren't just about showing others. They're about shaping yourself. Every challenge you overcome adds another layer to your foundation. Every victory, small or large, whispers to you, you're stronger than you thought. And step by step, your work builds a fortress that no critic, no doubter, no envious glance can penetrate. Oh, the strength of knowing you don't need to defend yourself. Your results already built the shield. Of course, the journey will test you. You'll face delays, obstacles, even moments where you question yourself. But here's the brutal truth. Every setback is part of the evidence. Every failure is not the end, but the rough draft of the success story that will silence every skeptic. Think of it. The scars of your effort become the proof of your persistence. Results aren't born from ease, they're carved from resistance. And when the moment comes, when the dust clears and the scoreboard is visible to all, you won't have to explain a single thing. The work will echo for you. The effort will shine for you. The results will bow for you. That's the art, not chasing validation, but becoming undeniable. That's how you turn whispers into silence, and silence into awe. So the question isn't whether people will respect you. The question is, what results are you willing to build? that they can never deny. Because the answer to that question is what determines if your name becomes a shadow or a standard. So what did they gain? Huh? Nothing. They sold you out, betrayed you, and still lost everything. Oh wow. The irony tastes sweeter than gold itself. Delicious. They thought you'd break. They thought you'd crawl. Nah, never. Because while they chase shadows, you became the fire they fear. You became the mirror that shows them their rot, clear, brutal, unforgiving. And here's the truth. They can't swallow. You were the treasure all along. So let them burn their hands chasing smoke while you walk away untouchable. They watched you. Not just once, not in passing, not by chance, but as a job. That 12 eyes, 12 minds, 12 silent witnesses to the war you never invited, but never ran from either. They studied your scars like archaeologists decoding ruins, thinking maybe they'd find your breaking point hidden somewhere in the dust. But they didn't, because it wasn't there. They were paid to predict your collapse, to document your weaknesses, to write reports thick with reasons why you'd never rise. But every page turned blank when it came to that part, because your collapse never arrived. The day you were supposed to fall never came, and that frightened them. Each of the 12 wrote the same thing in their final report, spine-chilling, hushed, and without variation. We don't know how they're still standing. That's all they could say after watching the storms hammer you. The walls close in, the nights stretch on like centuries while sleep refused to hold your hand. They saw how many times you sat with silence, swallowed the ache, bit your own tongue just to keep your dignity intact. They saw the cracks form, deep, raw, unfiltered, and still somehow you never shattered. They heard the rumors, saw the betrayal, watched you get cut out, underestimated, written off, but never erased, because you wouldn't let them. You never gave them the satisfaction of watching you bleed out in the open. You stitched your own wounds in the dark, using threads made from your own breath. You didn't ask for pity. You burned it. Didn't seek revenge. You outran it. You didn't try to prove them wrong. You became something no one could explain. That's why all 12 froze. That's why their words trembled, because they saw something terrifying, not rage, not pride, but something quieter, dead, a kind of strength that doesn't flinch, doesn't parade, doesn't scream, the kind that survives, the kind that watches the fire and walks through it anyway. You see, what unsettled them wasn't your win, it was your silence, your discipline, your refusal to let life bend you, even when it broke your bones. They thought pain would slow you. They thought time would humble you. They thought the isolation would eat you alive, but you turned it into a feast. Sat at a table with your doubts and devoured every one. They saw the nights you didn't sleep, not because you were weak, but because your purpose had no off switch. They tracked your every move, and still couldn't decode your grit. They studied your habits, your solitude, your scars, and still walked away confused, because no one warned them what it looks like when a person refuses to die inside. They weren't prepared to witness the slow birth of something invincible. They saw the pain, but they missed the process. They saw the wounds, but missed the war you'd already won in your head. And so all 12, with all their data, their metrics, their conclusions, came back saying the same thing. They're still standing, like it was a horror, like it was unnatural. Because to them it was people like you weren't supposed to exist, not in this world of distractions and noise and easy exits. But you stayed. You endured. You kept walking when your legs begged you to stop, when your lungs screamed for air, when the path turned to thorns and all comfort vanished. You still moved. And that shook them, because they mistook your silence for surrender. They mistook your solitude for weakness. But you were never alone. You were just too focused to entertain the crowd, too in tune with your mission to need an audience. And now they whisper about you like you're a ghost that refused to fade, like you're a storm they can't chart, and deep down they envy it. Not your strength, but your stillness. The calm after the chaos. Because they know they could never survive what you did and still keep their soul intact. They know they'd have folded where you stood tall, because they were never built for this, never forged in silence, never baptized in fire. But you were carved from it, born from it, raised by the shadows and taught by every bruise that healing isn't always soft, savage. Sometimes it's standing still while everything inside you begs to run. Sometimes it's looking in the mirror and promising yourself you won't bow. Not today, not ever. They hired 12 to monitor you, and all 12 came back, terrified. Not because you shouted, not because you fought back, but because you didn't have to. You just existed. And that was enough to shake them, enough to silence a dozen eyes that couldn't find your end. Because you are not a story with a final page. You are the book they keep trying to burn, but the fire only makes you brighter. You are the quiet before the reckoning, the storm after the storm. And when they tried to define you, all they found was a presence too large to measure, a resilience too silent to predict. So they watched and finally understood. You weren't meant to be studied. You were meant to be feared. They called in experts, psychologists, strategists, behavior analysts, people trained to dissect the human mind, but none of them could find the glitch in your code, because there wasn't one. They tried to reverse engineer your resilience, like it was a trick, like maybe it was luck or conditioning or some secret system buried in your past. But the truth rattled them harder than any failure. You weren't built. You were born, forged by the pressure they thought would crush you, sharpened by the silence they thought would haunt you. They monitored your movement, waiting for the hesitation, the breakdown, the pause in your rhythm, but your rhythm never stopped. It only got quieter, more precise. You became a weapon they couldn't trace, a force they couldn't predict. You weren't loud, but you were lethal, and they didn't know how to report that. How to explain that you kept moving even when everything in your life said stop. Even when the people you trusted vanished. When your name became a whisper. When your value was questioned. When the spotlight passed you over again and again and again. You stayed. You kept showing up, not because someone was clapping, not because anyone cared, but because something inside you refused to be erased. And when the 12th one closed their report, their hands trembled, not from fear of you, but from fear of what you represent. The death of excuses, the end of victimhood, the proof that pain is not the end, only the beginning. They saw how you carried on with nothing, no crowd, no comfort, no promise, just hunger in your chest and fire in your lungs. They saw the mornings where you had to fight just to lift your head, the nights you screamed into your pillow, and the screen never made a sound. They tracked your days when food didn't taste like food and joy felt like a rumor. And yet you worked, and yet you trained, and yet you dreamed like the world hadn't crushed you 10 times over. That's what shook them. Not the power in your steps, but the power in your stillness. The way you stood there alone, tired, bleeding, unseen, and still refused to kneel, because you learned something they'll never teach in schools. That the most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest, the one who survived the most. The one who walked through betrayal and didn't flinch. The one who mastered their own mind while everyone else was scrolling for distraction. You didn't fight for attention, you fought for transformation. And that's why they couldn't classify you. You didn't fit their files. You weren't a case study. You were a revolution walking on 2 legs. And what they all said, what chilled them to the bone, was that nothing broke you. Not even the things designed to, and that made you unexplainable. They couldn't report your power because your power was invisible. It was in the choices you made when no one watched. In the pain you swallowed without complaint. In the way you kept your heart soft and your spine unbreakable. They were trained to find your patterns, but your pattern was chaos turned to art. Pain turned to purpose. Struggle turned to scripture. They tried to chart your behavior like it had a formula, but they didn't understand you don't run on logic. You run on will, on something older than tactics, something deeper than analysis. They tried to measure you like a number, but you were a storm without coordinates. They tried to contain you in labels, but you were born label-proof. And each time life buried you, you used the dirt as your foundation. They expected screams, you gave them silence. They expected collapse. You gave them stillness. They expected rage. You gave them discipline, and the discipline is what terrified them most. Because it meant you weren't fueled by emotion. You were guided by vision. And vision is immortal. Vision doesn't care how you feel. Vision doesn't stop for wounds or doubt or fatigue. Vision is the voice you obey, even when your whole body begs you to quit. And that's what they saw in you. A soul obeying its own command. A fire that burned clear without smoke. A presence that grew even when ignored. They watched and realized that you didn't need momentum. You created it. You didn't need hope. You were hope. Not the soft kind, but the kind that sharpens teeth and digs graves for everything that tried to kill it. Your walk wasn't fast, but it was steady, and steady wins. You became the blueprint for what happens when a person stops asking for permission to become something powerful and starts becoming it anyway. You didn't break through, you broke free. And that scared, because they knew if even one more person followed your path, everything they believed about weakness would collapse. If even one more soul realized that you don't need applause, don't need backup, just brutal focus and unshakable self-trust, then their whole narrative would fall apart. And so they tried to silence you, to analyze you, to reduce you. But you were too far gone, too far grown, too deep in your own evolution to be stopped. So they watched. And every day you kept moving. They questioned everything they thought they knew. Every excuse they ever used to stay average. Every lie they ever believed about limits. And when they gathered together, all 12, all shaken, all confused, none of them could explain it. None of them had answers. They just looked at one another and admitted the truth. They're still standing. Not because they were lucky, but because they decided they would be. no matter what, because they endured the kind of pain that doesn't get posted, survived the kind of nights that don't make headlines, walked through fire without even a whisper and came out cold, clear, calm, not numb but focused, not detached but dangerous. They watched your rise and called it unnatural. But what's unnatural is a spirit that refuses to surrender. What's unnatural is still believing in your own comeback after 1,000 disappointments. What's unnatural is they started calling you unnatural because nothing else made sense. They couldn't accept that a person could absorb that much rejection, that much betrayal, that much silence, and still walk forward like destiny owed them something. But you weren't walking forward for destiny, you were walking forward for you because you had already buried the version of yourself that begged, that waited, that needed, gave that one a funeral, with no mourners. And from those ashes you rose, not taller, but truer. And the 12 who were hired to monitor your destruction were now watching your becoming, and they didn't know what to do with it because they were trained to detect risk, not revolution. They were looking for flaws, but all they saw was fire, controlled, quiet, but relentless. When they dug deeper, when they traced your steps back to the origin of your strength, they still found no trigger, no savior, no grand external turning point. Only grit, only moments. 1,000 tiny acts of self-respect. The nights you turned your back on comfort. The days you showed up to the grind, even when you had every excuse not to. They saw your rise, but they missed the repetitions. The thousands of silent reps, mental, emotional, physical, that built you. Not in public, but in the dark, in the quiet, in the lonely rooms where nothing claps when you win, and nothing cries when you lose, where there are no likes, no reposts, no validation, just the breath in your lungs and the war in your chest. They called it unbreakable, but you called it necessary. They said unbelievable, but you said earned. Because the truth is, while they were waiting to see you fail, you were busy building the version of yourself that doesn't need a witness, the version that doesn't flinch when the doors close, because you learned long ago how to build your own exits. You learned how to stay calm in chaos, how to move in silence, how to sharpen your spirit so precisely that even despair cut itself on your present. You became a mirror that showed people their excuses, their comfort zones, their fragile beliefs. And mirrors don't lie. That's why they hated watching you. Because every second they spent studying you, they realized what they could have been, but weren't. And when the report was finally presented, clean folders, crisp fonts, silence hanging in the air like fog, there it was again, the sentence, repeated, unanimous, undeniable. They're still standing, and those words weren't written with admiration, they were written with fear. Because what do you do when the person you tried to break doesn't break? What happens when the system you built to contain them fails? When the pressure you applied only made them colder, cleaner, clearer. They thought they'd found your limit when you lost everything, but you didn't just survive that loss. You ground it into dust beneath your heel and kept walking. Because you learned something most people never do. That pain isn't the enemy. It's the architect. It carves you open so truth can enter. It burns the weak parts so strength can grow in their place. And yeah, it hurts. It always hurts. But somewhere along the line, you stopped avoiding that hurt and started listening to it, started working with it, and now pain isn't your opponent, it's your shadow. It follows you, yes, but it obeys you. They don't understand how you breathe in resistance and exhale momentum, how you look at struggle and call it a gift, how you keep moving when the ground is gone. But the truth is, you've already walked through every kind of hell: rejection, betrayal, ridicule, isolation, and every time it tried to pull you under, you came back harder. Every time the world said you're done, you whispered back, "Watch me." And now they are all 12, watching with the wide eyes of those who saw a ghost turn into a legend, a storm turn into blueprint. They didn't know what they were tracking. They thought you were prey, but you were never prey. You were patience in disguise. And when the time came, you didn't roar. You rose quietly, like the sun no one sees coming, until the whole sky changes color. And maybe, just maybe, that's what scared them most. Not that you survived, but how you survived, with elegance, with intention, with silence as your shield, and discipline as your blade. Because anyone can scream through the fire, but to move calmly through it, to walk through flames without blinking, and emerge without smoke, that's not luck. That's mastery. And that's what you've become: a master of pain, a scholar of pressure, a quiet force too steady to stop. And so now, the same 12 that were paid to explain you are warning others instead, warning them that if they ever meet someone who reminds them of you, someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't brag, doesn't run, they should step back. Not but out of respect. Because some people aren't built for war. They are the war. They hired 12 people to monitor you, and they thought that would be enough. 12 lifeless pins waiting to capture your defeat in ink. 12 pairs of eyes sharpened like scalpels, slicing through your every moment, waiting for that one crack. That single hesitation, that flicker of weakness they could turn into a verdict. But the verdict never came, because you never gave them that crack. You were the one person they didn't understand, the one they couldn't predict, couldn't profile, couldn't tame. They kept watching, kept documenting, kept hoping for the fall. But you weren't built to fall, you were built to rise slowly, like mountains. So gradually that no one noticed until you were towering over everything that tried to bury you. You never exploded, you endured. You never shouted, you moved. You never looked back. Not because there wasn't pain, but because you had finally understood some things aren't worth carrying anymore. And that terrified them. Because what kind of human can drag themselves out of a storm, clean themselves up with no applause, build their empire with no map, and sit on their own throne in silence, smiling like they never bled? They watched you go through the nights no one else could have survived. The kind of nights where even your shadow left your side, where your breath shook like a leaf but you still stood tall, where there was no hand to hold, no promise of light. And still you carved your path forward, not hoping for rescue but refusing to quit. They watched the world lie to you. They saw the people smile to your face and spit on your name. They counted the times you were excluded, overlooked, replaced, underestimated. And still, they couldn't explain why you never lashed out, never begged, you just kept showing up. Like destiny owed you nothing, but you owed it everything. That's what they missed. You weren't after revenge. You weren't even after respect. You were after truth. The truth of who you were underneath the noise, the chaos, the pain. And the truth was terrifying because it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was solid, They wanted to know what kept you going. Was it anger? No. Was it validation? No. It was something purer, darker, deeper. It was the decision that no matter how many times you were ignored, hurt, doubted, you would not live on your knees. You didn't wait for the pain to pass. You used it. You didn't wait for the door to open. You built your own damn doorway, brick by bloody brick, with your bare hands and raw will. They thought they'd break you by isolating you, that they didn't realize that solitude was your home. That silence didn't scare you, it fed you. Because in the silence, you learned how to listen to the only voice that mattered, your own. And that voice whispered, keep going. Not because it's easy, not because it's fair, but because you're not finished. You never were. And that's what unnerved them. 12 trained eyes, 12 professional minds, and all of them stunned by one truth. You don't quit. You absorb. You adapt. You rebuild. Not as the person you were, but as something stronger, cleaner, cold. They thought pain would make you desperate, but you didn't beg to discipline. They thought failure would make you fragile, but you didn't collapse, you clarified. They thought betrayal would make you bitter, but you didn't lash out, you let go. That's the horror of your strength. It doesn't rage, it refuses. It refuses to be corrupted, refuses to be predictable, refuses to be tamed. You are the kind of force that reshapes the battlefield without raising your voice. The kind of presence that makes people nervous without saying a word. Because you don't just survive storms, you remember their names. You don't just endure fire, you walk out of it with ashes on your skin and purpose in your eyes. And when they ask you how you made it, you smile. Because they'll never understand. They thought resilience looked like a loud comeback. But you showed them it looks like a quiet refusal to die. They thought confidence looked like boasting. But you showed them it's walking into every room knowing you've already faced work. They thought success looked like luxury. But you showed them it's walking with integrity when no one's watching. They thought strength was noise, but you made them realize true power is stillness. And now they whisper your name, not in awe, in caution, because you are no longer someone they can measure, track, predict. You are a variable that destroys every formula, a storm that rewrites maps, a soul that outlasts time. And when they tried to explain you, all they could say was that spine-chilling sentence. They're still standing. And oh, what that sentence cost you. It cost you your comfort, your innocence, your softness. It cost you nights you'll never get back. Wounds that never fully close, a heart that had to learn how to beat without warmth. But in the end, you emerged with something they'll never have. You emerged with depth, with eyes that have seen the end and walked past it, with hands that know how to build piece from pieces, with a soul that has died and still chose to keep breathing. You became unbreakable, not because you were born that way, but because you were broken properly and rebuilt. Better, sharper, quieter, wiser. They monitored you, thinking they would find your edge, not realizing you have none. You're endless now. You don't rise with the sun, you are your own sunrise. So let them keep watching. Let them assign more, hire more, measure more. Let them monitor every step you take. They'll all find the same thing, the same cold, undeniable truth. You don't bow, you don't break, you don't quit, because you are no longer trying to survive. You are becoming the storm they warned them about. And the terrifying part for them, the most spine-chilling discovery of all, is not that you're still standing. It's that you haven't even started.